Hi again and welcome to this new section here. Now we're going to move to the next element in our framework, which is complex structures, and let's examine those in more details. Well, first of all, there are so many different complex structures. There is a variety of different sentences that you could use here, but we're going to go through some of them one by one. And the first one is, and the easiest, is conditional sentences. This is the conditional. If something happens, then there is a result of that. So the conditional is a statement or a sentence that describes a situation and its possible outcome. An outcome is the result. An example, if it rains, I will stay inside. So if it rains, I won't go outside. And essentially, there are four main different types of conditional which we're going to look at. And they are usually numbered. There is the first, the zero conditional, the first, the second, the third. And for those who want to take it another step further, there is even the mixed one, but we're not going to look at that for now. I don't want to overcomplicate it for you. So starting from the zero conditional. And this one is used for fact and general truth. The result always happens if the condition is met. If you have the condition, you're always going to get the result. So in terms of the structure, you add if, and then the condition should be with the present simple, and the result always with the present simple. If you heat up water to 100 degrees Celsius, it boils. So I use both of them with the present simple because the result is always going to happen if the condition is met. It is against physics law, against nature, if you do something, if you heat up water to that degree and it doesn't boil. But for the context of IELTS, you could say if people recycle more, the environment improves. We know for a fact that if you stop emitting CO2 gases or industrial gases that are polluting the environment, the air quality improves. Like it's a fact. If you stop burning something, there would be no smoke in the air, you know. Moving to the next type of conditional, this is called the first conditional. And this one is used to express real possibilities. So there is always a possible future situation where the result is likely to happen if the condition is met. It's not 100%. In terms of the structure, you're going to structure it with, the condition is going to be structured with if plus the present simple, but the result, we're going to have to use the future here, or you add will plus the infinitive. So an example here is, if I save enough money, I will visit Japan. It's just simple. If I have money, I will visit Japan, and that's going to be in the future. The next type is the second conditional, and this one is used to describe unreal or hypothetical situations that are not very likely to happen. So most of the time we use this conditional to talk about dreams, wishes, or some things that might be out of our reach. Like for example, winning the lottery. Like it could happen, but it's not very likely. So you construct this one with if, and then the condition is with the past simple, and then for the result, you're going to have to use would plus the infinitive. If I won the lottery, I would buy a house. Winning the lottery is not very likely, and that's why it's better to use the second conditional. Or in the context of IELTS, if you are asked to describe an event that happened in the past, you could say, if I could relive that day, I wouldn't change anything about it. So when you are describing the event, if you could relive that day, well, that's a hypothetical scenario. It's not real. You cannot go back in time and live that moment again. But you are saying here, if I had that capability, or literally if I could relive that day, live that moment again, I wouldn't change anything about it. And the last type of the conditional is the third conditional. And this one is used to express past hypothetical situation. It is used when discussing things that didn't happen and imagining their possible results if they happened, for example, in the past. And here you're going to have to use if plus the past perfect for the condition, and then for the result is would have plus the past participle. Let's look at an example. If we had started using renewable energies earlier, the climate would have been better now. So obviously, as part of our usage of electricity, we've relied on fossil fuel for quite a long time. Now, you cannot go back in time and change that, but you are saying that if that happened, the climate would have been better by now. Like the climate now is obviously messed up, but you are saying if a hypothetical scenario and real situation happened in the past, the situation today would already be different than that. So as is written here, it is used when discussing things that didn't happen and imagining their possible results if they happened. Or to give you a simple example, you could say, if I had started saving up money since I was a child, I would have been a millionaire by now. And now let's look at another complex structure that's also easy to use, and that is the passive form. And this picture will give you some basic understanding of the passive form. It's usually when the subject performs the action. If you want to make it in a passive form, you start with the object on which the action was performed, and then you describe that or had something happened to him by the agent or the person who did the action on that. So the passive form simply shifts the focus from the subject acting on the action itself to the recipient of the action. It is like reversing the order of the sentence, as I just mentioned. This is the structure, but let me give you an example so you understand it better. My mother offered me a present, and a present here, it means a gift. So this was in the active form, but when you turn it to a passive form, a gift was offered to me by my mother. And that's exactly what we did. We shifted the focus from the object here, which was the gift, and we started with the gift was offered to me by my mother, and my mother was the subject, but now it's the agent. You could see here the subject in the passive form becomes the gift, which was the object, and then you add a form of to be. Here in the past simple, you're going to have to adapt depending in which tense it was used, but here because it was in the past, so the verb to be is going to have to be in the past as well, plus add in the past participle offered to me, and this represents you, by my mother, so by the agent, and the agent here was your mother, by the agent. I think it's quite straightforward. I'll add a few examples so you could practice that. And the next one is subordinate clauses in complex structures. The first one is cause consequence. I think we are all familiar with this. You could use because, since, in order, due to, therefore, as a consequence. So an example here is, I decided to travel to Australia because my friend offered me accommodation there. And one thing that I need to emphasize, and you're also going to find it detailed in the IELTS Speaking Secrets ebook, is the thing that you should keep in mind is that if you are using because, then you can with because you can always follow that by a regular sentence. But when you have due to always has to be followed by a noun. So you cannot have like a regular sentence where there is a subject plus verb. There should always be a noun. For example, due to the fact that my friend offered me accommodation, I decided to travel to Australia. So due to the fact is a noun there. Another form of subordinate clauses is contradiction or opposition. So you need to provide sentences that have contradiction in them. And for that, you're going to have to use some of these adverbs: although, even though, whereas, while, despite. An example here is, although my hometown is quite small, it attracts many tourists due to its historical landmarks and cultural festivals. So although your hometown is very small, but many people come to visit it. So there is a contradiction there. And then we also added due to, which was from the cause consequence here. Due to, and it means it is attributed to these reasons. This is the reason why. And notice here that due to, we followed it by a noun. And that's how it should always be. Okay, the next structure for a complex structure are cleft sentences. And these are quite interesting. Let's take a look at a few examples to have better understanding of cleft sentences. Cleft sentences are great for emphasizing key points. So basically you start the sentence with it, what, or all. And let me show you. So in part one, you might get a question like, when was the last time you read a book? Now, instead of answering the question straight away, I read a book last week, you can start it with a cleft sentence and you say, it must have been 3 months ago that I read a book the last time. In part two, if you are asked about what trait is most important to you in a person, and a trait here is like it's an adjective or something about them, part of their personality. When using cleft sentence with what, you can start it with, what I value the most in a person is honesty. And the last one is, if you follow on that topic and then the examiner in part 3 might ask you, what do you value the most in a relationship? You can say, from my perspective, all that I care about in a relationship is communication, because it can make or break the relationship. And make or break there is actually a collocation, and it means like it is the most important element, or is very crucial, is very intrinsic. The communication there, if it's good, then it's going to make the best relationship, but then if the communication is not there, then it's going to literally break the relationship. And these are basically what cleft sentences are. And I curated a list of cleft sentences that how you can use them in the ebook. Please check them out. You could find those in the VIP Factor C2 formula on the table, in the table there, so please check it out. You're going to have real examples of how you could use them. Alright, so we've just covered complex structures. I hope it wasn't that complex, because I tried to provide very detailed examples that are easy to remember. And yeah, so your current level of English or should look something like that. It's as usual, keeps expanding. Last we looked at idioms, advanced tenses, and now we just added complex structures. Can you already see the difference? Like, we started here and you are continuously adding all these different elements to your speaking skills. So please practice those. But to demonstrate for you here how the question is going to look like, your answer should be, absolutely, I'm a bit of a bookworm. I've always been fascinated by books. So we have actually the first complex structure, which is the passive form. So books fascinate you. In the passive form, you have always been fascinated by books. And then we also added another complex structure, which is the cause consequence. Why are you fascinated by books? Because many of them are fascinating. I quite often pick up one from our university's library, and that was the phrasal verb. Obviously, this is just an example. You could adjust it, change it, or add your own elements to it. I'm just trying to show you here how you should try to improve your answer.